Hi everyone, and welcome to our webinar. Today we are going to be joined by some very special guests who are going to give you lots of inspiration about how to enable your students as creators as you are going back to school. So I've got a great lineup for you, and we can't wait to see all of you in the chat. We've got lots of people starting to say hello. We've got people from the Netherlands, Finland, Milan, UK, Arizona, London. So welcome all of you. We're so pleased that you're able to join us. So as you probably have seen, Claudia came and joined us on a webinar for one episode, and she's now become our resident co-host. So please say a big hello for Claudia. Hi, Claudia.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here because today we will explore how to enhance student engagement with ThingLink, and I love it. Plus, today we go the extra mile and we're going to dive into strategies that can elevate our classroom and inspire creativity. So I am super excited and I'm very happy to see you all here today. Thank you.
Oh, and there's lots of love for you already on the chat, Claudia, people saying hello. And for those of you who are just joining us that don't know who Claudia is a digital leader and actually works in the Aosta Valley in Italy. So I presume you've already got some snow there on those mountains around you, Claudia.
Yeah, we have. It's kind of winter. It's so strange. It's September, but it's wintry here, super cold. Oh my goodness.
Well, if you are joining us on the replay, you can be forgiven because the weather here is actually amazing. And it always happens when people go back to school. So if you're enjoying the sunshine, we totally understand it. And we hope that you're catching up on the replay. And also, as usual, your questions will be answered in the chat. So if you have any technical questions about ThingLink, then of course you'll know that Ivan is our head of support here at ThingLink. And Ivan, I'm just going to bring you on to say hello to everyone. So hi, Ivan, how are you doing and how is it in Helsinki?
Well, I am envious of your weather because we are definitely entering fall right now. It has been raining for the past 4 days, I think. So we went straight from sunny 25 degrees to about 12. So very much going to go through my wardrobe and get some warm clothes out.
Well, we're delighted that you're going to join us this evening. And there's been some great updates as well that you and I have been putting out on the social media channels. And I'll be covering some of those updates later on in the webinar, or little teasers like invisible tags and hover over previews and all the good stuff. So thank you, Ivan. We appreciate you as always. And yeah, shout out in the chat if you've got any questions for Ivan. Thanks, Ivan. And of course, now it is my great pleasure to welcome Rachel to the webinar team. Hi, Rachel.
Hello. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we are just over the moon. I mean, ThingLink and Stanford University have been buddying up on some of this work for the last few months, which has just been absolutely amazing. And to see what you've developed is incredible. And I'm really excited that you're going to be sharing this with everybody here. Now, those of you who don't know Rachel is actually an astrophysicist, a professor, no less, in astrophysics. And you have been studying all sorts of cosmetology. Is that the right way to say it?
Close. So my doctorate is in observational cosmology, but I'm not actually in the astrophysics community anymore. So I have always been very passionate about science education and science learning. And I'm now a learning scientist at Stanford, and I've been working for my team at Stanford University for the past 7 years. So now it's my job, instead to study faraway stars, to study learning that's happening at home, at schools, and in informal learning spaces.
Amazing. And we've put all of your resources that you're going to be sharing into the email. So if you're watching now, look out for an email that will come probably about 15 minutes or so after the webinar. We're going to be putting Rachel's slides in there. You'll get all of the slides that we're presenting here now any other resources that we mention. So please do look out for that email. So many of you know exactly what ThingLink is, but some of you who are joining us maybe don't know what ThingLink is. So just a few words from me just to show you, and please chip in, Claudia and Rachel, if there's anything you want to add. So ThingLink in 2024 is a complete suite of tools. Many people don't know that ThingLink is nearly 14 years old. It was developed in Finland as a brainchild of Ulla-Maria Koivula, who was studying for her PhD in education. And since then, ThingLink has grown from the editor that we know and love, the OG. We've also added a way to create branching scenarios with your ThingLinks, if you like, and add in blocks and questions so you can create pick your own adventure style scenarios, but also, and this is really relevant in an era of AI, we're thinking about skills-based learning. You can have situations where you can have different choices to a challenge. And once you've set the context, people can choose the choices and then see what the outcomes are or the consequences of those actions. So that's been very popular. We've also got guided tours where you can have one click and take someone sequentially through an experience. We also created our own Panel to 360 so that if you have students that are using maybe an iPad out on one of your ideas, Rachel, for student creation of field trips, you know, students can go out with a mobile phone or an iPad or a tablet device and take one swoop of a panoramic image and then upload to ThingLink, and we'll fill in the tops and the bottoms to create those 360 photospheres. And I know that's something that you've seen students use, Rachel. And we've also got an AR app. And Claudia, you've just been tinkering around with the AR app, haven't you?
Yeah, I'm just in love. I mean, everything you say, I'm like, wow, amazing. I'm using it. Oh my God, 10 stars, not even 5, 10 stars. I love everything about ThingLink. I mean, it's just amazing. You can deliver competencies. It's just, and it's so easy to use. I mean, come on. Love it.
And we've just had a reminder, I think it was Ivan that's just put this in the chat, or Maddie, that Panel to 360 tool was actually one of the ideas that Stanford suggested that we put forward. So yeah, don't hesitate to give us feedback because there is proof of this in action. We do jump when people make those fantastic suggestions. So all in all, not too much more from me. Immersive learning made easy is what we do and what we're proud of as well. And we're seeing more and more examples of immersive learning experiences being created. But a last word from me, it's not just about headsets, because people often jump to thinking about just VR headsets when we're talking about immersive learning experiences. And we've come to realize that immersive learning experiences, it's not just about the consumption or viewing them, it's about creating them, and it's also about sharing those experiences. And it's not just about the headsets. I don't know about you guys, but as a prescription glasses wearer, I find it really difficult with headsets on, but also it might not be right for some learners. It might be cost prohibitive for some schools, but actually, you know, when you're creating or students are creating immersive experiences, they can actually be viewed on a laptop, a tablet device. They can even be viewed in an immersive kind of igloo, you know, where you've got the projectors and you're actually in a room. So people can actually experience their immersive experiences from within. So yeah, I think that's probably enough from me. I am now, I've given something away there. I'll go back the other way. I will now go over to Rachel. Rachel, do you want to share your screen, and I'll be able to add your screen onto. And if you've got any other questions, please do keep them coming, and we'll be able to put them onto the screen. We've had one question that come in. Oh, really nice comment for you there, Ivan, that's just come through. Congratulating you on your excellent support service, which is just fabulous. Right, I'm going to remove my screen and I'm going to add Rachel's on there. And please, as I mentioned, do ask questions. And I'm just going to remove myself and Claudia. So without further ado, it's over to Rachel, who's going to take you through student creation of virtual trips and so much more. So Rachel, over to.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, Louise. And Wendy, I see your comment in the chat about assessing through ThingLink. I'm not sure about doing that through the platform itself, but that's something that my team's been working on, and we'll get to that at the very end of what I'm going to share with you today. So thank you so much for inviting me to share and for being with the ThingLink community today. For those of you who didn't hear in the beginning, hi, my name is Rachel Wolf. I'm a research scholar or a research scientist at Stanford University in the Graduate School of Education. Learning and education, particularly science education, has always been my passion. My winding career path took me down roads as a museum guide, as a Discovery Channel intern, as a math and physics teacher, a PhD astrophysicist, and now a learning scientist. Now, I am part of a team that studies how people learn with an emphasis on STEM learning for 10 to 13-year-olds. It is my pleasure to join the webinar today and to share our work on virtual field trips in the K-12 space. It's an effort that's been underway for over 3 years with contributions from researchers, instructional designers, students, formal and informal educators. I hope this webinar is going to feel like a conversation. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time. Be happy to pause and have some discussion if it feels appropriate. And of course, I'd be more than happy to follow up after the webinar today, and we'll be sure to provide lots of options for how to do that. So before we get started, I thought it could be nice to get a sense of who's here today. So if folks would feel comfortable on the chat, I would love for people to just write in number form to let me know if you are, one, an education practitioner who works directly with learners. Are you working with youth? Are you working with college students? Is this something that you might be excited to share with your students? Are you someone who works at an educational institution, but maybe not directly with learners? Are you not affiliated with education at all, but excited about ThingLink and about virtual field trips? Or are you just completely brand new and here for fun? So if you feel comfortable in just a second or two, if you want to write those numbers in the chat, I'd love to see. I see some ones already. So that means there are folks who are in education who work directly with learners. Hi there. And if a few things apply to you, feel free to put both. So I see some ones, I see some twos. So lots of folks already in the education space. That's very exciting. And I'm hoping that what I'm going to share today will feel exciting, will feel relevant, will get you very intrigued by the work that we're doing with students creating their own virtual field trips. Lots of ones, twos, some threes coming in. Excellent. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. So the work I'm sharing today is just a small part of Stanford University's relatively new Accelerator for Learning. The goal of the Accelerator is to leverage strengths in brain and learning sciences, technology, and data across disciplines and across the university to tackle big problems and create equitable solutions in education. The Accelerator is organized into several initiatives, including early childhood education, adult and workforce learning, and digital learning. The Digital Learning Initiative is home to our team's virtual field trip, or VFT work. I'm going to be using that VFT acronym a lot. Our VFT work emerged from the pandemic when a geology lecturer could no longer take his students on in-person site visits and needed to find a virtual solution. Since then, our VFT initiatives have expanded to include the creation of field trips for educator use, modules connecting science instruction to community, and the design of trips as preparation for in-person fieldwork. My focus is on understanding how this innovative digital medium can be used in the K-12 space and how VFTs impact student learning, engagement, and attitudes. Today, we're going to talk about our efforts around student creation of virtual field trips. My guess is many of you attending today probably have an idea of what a virtual field trip is or could be, but I thought we could start by giving everyone the opportunity to explore an example of what our team is calling a virtual field trip. Although, to be honest, we have internal debates about this definition all the time, and we haven't really settled on just one. We've conceptualized VFTs as a multi-purpose medium ranging from a virtual recreation of an in-person visit or in-person field experience to a vehicle for students to demonstrate their learning of concepts or skills tied to a specific location or place. This might be something like students creating a trip to showcase key features of an ecosystem in places around the world. It could be students creating trips to teach students in different parts of the country about evidence of climate change they see in their community. The trip I've linked to here is one that was recently created by a group of high school students tasked with creating a virtual field trip about the carbon cycle. Their goal was to detail the ways carbon moves through the environment, tying specific processes and ideas to representations of those concepts in a 360-degree space. Please take a minute or two, open a new tab. You can go to the link shown there or was also pasted in the chat and explore how this group of students used a VFT to showcase their knowledge. You might want to mute your audio in case you're in a room with lots of other people because there is sound. So I'm going to wait a couple minutes and give folks just a little bit of time to explore.
Oh my God, we're already off to a flying start. Lots and lots of people joining on the chat and having a look at that student-created virtual field trip. So just to kind of reiterate, whilst people are looking at this, this isn't just about a virtual field trip as we know it. We saw a lot of this during the pandemic, didn't we? When people were looking at virtual field trips because they couldn't actually get to those spaces in advance. But what you're describing is about creating virtual field trips of places people haven't been to, or even creating them whilst they're on that visit.
Yes, absolutely. So it could be somewhere they've never been. So for example, this was from an image that the students had never been to this beautiful beach, but they could think about the carbon cycle in the context of what an ocean ecosystem looks like. We've also had teachers creating virtual field trips where students are going out into the field and doing community-based science. So they're taking observations, taking data, and taking images along the way, and then going back into the classroom and creating a virtual experience that's documenting what they did out in the field. So there's lots of potential there, depending on how you want to kind of frame and contextualize your place-based learning.
And that's so much more impactful than coming back to school, say, and just doing a paper-based report or a write-up about that visit. And as we saw someone ask earlier on, can this be assessed, or is there some sort of assessments that you can do with that? So yeah, you can just see it all coming together, right? I think we'll hop on out and we'll leave you to.
Well, hopefully everyone had a chance to explore. We're going to show lots of examples, and I'll give you definitely a website you can go to see other student-created and educator-created work. Now, I'm guessing that when many of you hear the words of virtual field trip, you tend to think of a consumption model. So this is something where an educator or an institution creates a virtual space and perhaps a related activity, and students explore a world given to them. While this is a line of curricular development and research that's in our team's portfolio and we are very excited about, our efforts have largely focused on a different approach. Instead, we're exploring a model where students are creators. They're authoring their own virtual field trips with the goals of demonstrating knowledge, teaching someone something new, and or sharing a place or space that is important to them. I see a comment in the chat asking, was this created by an educator or a student? If you're referring to the trip we were just looking at about the carbon cycle in the ocean, that was created by a high school student who was supposed to be showcasing the processes of the carbon cycle. So by using intuitive tools such as ThingLink, students are agentic organizers and communicators of their own learning, and they're creating interactive experiences that can be shared with others. In the over 3 years we've engaged in this work, we've collaborated with more than 10 teachers and more than 300 students. During this time, educators in particular have been first to recognize the benefits of student VFT creation. Immediately, it stands out not only as a presentation medium, but not only as a presentation medium because students can demonstrate their knowledge, but because the final product is an interactive experience in which other students can extend their learning. So by engaging with somebody else's virtual field trip, you get to learn even more about that content area. Students are drawn to the innovative technology. It's fun, it's easy, and pretty cool. At least that's what they tell us in focus groups. And the teachers and students see limitless potential to create projects that directly connect abstract concepts to learners' local environments and physical spaces. So the teachers and the students have been very excited about this work. And as we've continued, our research team has seen firsthand how clearly this student creation effort draws on and exemplifies in practice research-based frameworks and pedagogies. We've found that implementing student creation effectively requires time, iteration, and ample opportunity for student voice and choice, key tenets of project-based learning. In students choosing what information to include in their final interactive project, how to include it, and how much to personalize it, they are actively engaged in creative production. Obviously, the medium is ideal for place-based learning, with 360-degree images of places and spaces providing important context for deeper understanding. And by including opportunities for students to collaborate in teams, get feedback on their work, and share their final VFTs, design thinking and the development of 21st century skills are evident all throughout the creation process. Our team and the educators we've partnered with and the students we're working with are very excited about this line of work. And the team that I co-lead at Stanford is particularly interested in the potential this brings for innovative learning research. Before I continue, I'd like to pause and see if there are any other questions or thoughts that folks want to raise. You may have also noticed a QR code pop up at the bottom left corner of the screen. If at any point during this webinar you think, wow, I'd really love to learn more, or wow, it'd be so fun to collaborate with Rachel and the Stanford team, please use that QR code to fill out a brief interest survey. It'll take you 2 minutes max. You can also reach out via email, which I'll share at the end of the webinar. You'll also see a tiny URL link there. That's a link directly to our resource site, which I will talk about later. But if you want to peruse that at any time, please do so. So with that, I'm going to pause, see if there are any questions, and then we'll move on.
So yeah, we've added some of these resources to our email, which is going to go out to everybody directly after the webinar. So don't worry if you can't see the form or the QR code. We've also put the link in the chat for you here as well. So we will make sure that everyone gets access to those. Are there any other questions that anyone's got for Rachel? Lots of encouraging comments coming through, lots of hand claps and lots of love coming through as well. And some of our trainers have joined us as well. Here's Francesco.
All right. Well, if no one has any questions right now, I'm happy to continue. But if anything bubbles up, please ask in the chat and we'll be sure that we can pause and talk about it. So I thought I would just share just a small sample of our research questions that my team has. We are very interested in studying the implementation of using virtual field trips with learners, as well as the learning directly. In our pilot studies, we've been very interested in trying to figure out how do we support educator and student creation of virtual field trips? And specifically, how do we support educator implementation and facilitation of this process across various learning contexts? If you're new to the technology and you're new to this idea of place-based learning, there's a lot of prep that needs to go into this to make this an effective experience for you as an educator and for your students. So my team has been thinking about what does that look like in the classroom? What does it look like in an after-school program? And what kinds of supports can we create to help educators facilitate this with their learners? From a learning perspective, we have so many questions. Apart from just the features of the VFTs themselves, we're interested in how does this creation experience impact learning? How does the sharing of a virtual field trip impact student learning? And what do the features of the final products tell us about the students' learning along the way? And we're going to get into a little bit of this in just a second. So as I mentioned, we've been working with lots of teachers over a few years, and we've been taking lots of qualitative and quantitative data along the way. Our early implementations of this student creation process were absolutely essential for learning how to do this kind of work in a classroom or in an outside of class experience to support students and educators. This is just some example data that we have from 2 classes of students who were doing work to create a virtual field trip about a biome that they were tasked with as an assignment. The teacher created an assignment to say, here are some key features. You pick a biome, make sure that you're talking about adaptations of plants and animals, make sure that you're talking about the climate, make sure that you're using data. And so we asked the students after the fact, what they felt impacted their learning and what they really enjoyed. As you can see in all of this data, the students very much felt like they learned from and they enjoyed the agency of this creative experience. So they really enjoyed deciding what information to include and how to include it as well. They really liked using new technology and tools. They actually really appreciated the opportunity to look back and reflect on their work and to see what other students made. We collected this data with lots of surveys and self-reporting, but as you can see, even from this early study, there was much evidence that this process of design thinking was something that the students enjoyed and they felt that they learned from. We were also thinking about what does it look like as a final product when students make these virtual field trips. This is just a screenshot of a student-created virtual field trip from that biome project that I was speaking about. And it probably is hard to see here, but I can talk a little bit about the features that we noticed and how this then impacted our kind of work moving forward. So something that we noticed right away is that how students think about their audience and who's engaging with their final product is super important. It's not completely obvious to them that they need to think about things like, how are people going to navigate? How are people going to know, how to follow information from one place to the next? This particular project was made before guided mode existed in the platform. So students had to think really creatively about how they would guide somebody else if they were supposed to be learning from their final feature. So thinking then about how can educators scaffold this process to encourage students to think about audience, think about design thinking, and think about navigation. You'll also, if you can read it, you can see that there's a little bubble that says, congrats, you found a hidden bubble. And there's also a bubble that says, kind of in a joking way, an answer to a question. So we found that this element of personalization is really important to students, and trying to find the balance between personalization and approaching the content questions is something that teachers are really enjoying figuring out how to do. And we're also really interested in figuring out, does this personalization correlate with learning, both on the part of the creator, but then also on the part of the students who are going to engage with this final person's work or this person's final work. We're also looking at things like content learning. Are students elaborating on the concepts that they are talking about? Are they tying it to the appropriate place? You might be surprised to find or to know that we've seen so many examples of students who will say a tag of like, this is the sun in the middle of a lake. So thinking about how can we encourage students to really contextualize their learning in the space and to tie these themes and concepts to what they see around them. It's also a great opportunity for showcasing data skills. We have some educators who have absolutely loved the ability for students to narrate over their individual tags. So they might include a data representation and ask students to elaborate on the data that they see in a particular tag. And that's been a really fun way to include things about data literacy into these projects as well. So as I mentioned, we've been collecting lots of data about the student experience from the students themselves. And this is just a fun assessment item that I wanted to share with everybody. We actually took this from a professional learning workshop that my colleague and I attended through 4-H. If anybody is familiar with 4-H, it's an after-school positive youth development program here in the States. And this is a tree that we made for students. If you can see, there are numbers and characters on this tree. And we asked them after they were finished with their creation project to kind of talk about how they felt about their experience. And you'll see there's a combination of, happy characters. This one at the very top is very happy and proud, but also some not so happy characters like this guy face down, number 8 on the floor. And so we asked students to pick a character and elaborate on their experience. And we see lots of evidence of growth mindset in the kinds of responses that we get from students. So we see them talking about collaboration. We see them talking about how they struggle in the beginning, but by the end, they've really learned something and they feel proud and accomplished of what they've put together. They talk about how maybe this wasn't the best experience, but they could see that they learned something new that they could apply somewhere else. And so in doing that, we're getting even more feedback from the students themselves that they find this experience to be valuable for them. Or if nothing else, at least it seems mostly fun. And this is further confirmed by the experiences that the teachers are having as well. So we've talked with many educators about kind of what they're observing as students are creating. And across the board, we're just met with tons of enthusiasm. We hear things like, I don't think the kids learn by what teachers tell them. Kids learn by doing stuff. We hear that because, especially in the K-12 space, we're in this era of digital natives, that the kids love working with new technology. They pick it up really quickly and they really enjoy the opportunity to be creative. We've heard that because the students have to pick the information, choose where it's going, how it's presented, and then think about how somebody else would interact with their work, it kind of helps them do a higher level of thinking. There's a synthesis there that's not there in other kind of presentation mediums. And something else we've heard across the board is that educators have actually really loved learning together with their students. So it's a process that everybody's learning the technology, everybody's learning how to set up an assignment in this way, how to create a final product for a particular audience. And everyone has just been so excited about it. And of course, we're excited when we hear that educators are excited. And so in these early kind of pilot implementations, we learned a lot about all of the great stuff that was happening in the classroom and in these other learning contexts, but we also learned a lot about the obstacles and the challenges. And so we've been putting materials together to leverage our observations and what we've learned in the last 3.5 years to create what we are hoping will be a suite of materials to support educators who want to facilitate this work. So before I dive into that, I just want to pause again, see if anyone has any questions or anything else we want to chat about.
I can see Claudia is scribbling like you wouldn't believe. Claudia, I bet you've got a question. I can see you just scribbling away.
No, it's just I'm learning so much. You're talking about the fact that teachers and students are learning at the same time. I'm learning so much from you. So thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for all the examples and knowledge that you bring to the table today. It's just amazing. And thinking the fact that we are so far away from each other, but we do think alike is just it's just major. It's just major. And, I love the fact that you said that so students love and pick it up very, very quickly, and they love interacting with technology. Sometimes when you talk to the teacher, they say, no, it's difficult. But in my opinion, it's because they're not really into technology, whereas you're showing us that it's a total opposite. And I thank you for that. So I'm going to show the recording to some that I know. Yeah, just in case. And then everything that you're showing us today is just an example that we should all follow, really. So thank you so much.
That's so kind. And I mean, there's so much I could say, but one thing I will say is that something that we've found is that even when we work with educators who don't maybe identify as tech savvy, they still see the benefits for the students in the classroom and the students in the learning context. And so what we're trying to do is to put together a suite of materials for even those educators who want the minimal amount to do with the technology, but still want their students to be engaged. And because ThingLink has been, we see time and time again that the kids can pick it up super quickly. We feel confident. And if we share the kind of pedagogical framing and give example assignments that an educator who doesn't want to deal with it can just do what they are expert at and, facilitate in the classroom and guide students in their learning. And the kids can do everything on the tech side of things. Great. I do think it's better when an educator takes the time to get familiar with the platform so that they can help students when stumbling blocks occur, because they will. But if you really don't want to, but you're excited about the possibility here, you could even fit in here too. I think that, and I believe that very sincerely.
There's somebody in the chat that I really wanted to call out who I know is following this with interest, and that's Matt Jessup from Crosswake Primary School in Cumbria. And they've taken some of this philosophy and started scaffolding this kind of experience or this journey by looking at creating student portfolios. And what they did when they started with those was to also encourage students to look at the accessibility features and say, when you're creating your portfolio, have you thought about how everyone can really see your portfolio and really appreciate you by showing them how the accessibility tools, they're thinking that actually, everyone would benefit from having access to those tools. And it's a really nice way to introduce it, the importance of thinking about accessibility when you're creating content to share. So I just want to call Matt out because I know he's watching as well and looking forward to taking some of this to practice in their school. So I'm going to just make sure we can duck out and leave you to continue, Rachel.
Okay, so I'm so excited that there are folks who seem energized by this work. What I'm going to talk about now are the materials and the supports that I've been alluding to up until this point. So as I mentioned, we have put together what we are recommending based on all of our experience thus far as an instructional sequence for educators to facilitate student creation in the classroom. I actually think a lot of what we put together would be very relevant for folks who just want to make their own field trips for their students to engage with. So if you don't want to take this on for your students, it's something that would, I think, help you in thinking about what kinds of decisions you need to make and how to optimize student learning with a particular tour. Someone asked a question, can multiple students work on one presentation portfolio? In ThingLink, yes, which is a huge reason we advocate for the platform, because there are lots of really great virtual tour softwares available. This is the only one we know of that students can work collaboratively, and that's usually how teachers will assign the task in the classroom, that students will work in pairs or groups of 3 on the same project and work together to create a final product. That's been a great model that we've seen so far. I think it encourages a lot of collaboration. It encourages discussion and feedback and really fosters those 21st century skills that I was talking about in the beginning. So in this sequence, and I'll talk a little bit about the individual pieces in a second, we've kind of outlined a start to finish plan for if you would like to create an experience like this for your students. It starts by introducing the concept of a virtual field trip in the way that we're talking about it, as kind of tying concepts or ideas to place and space. I realized, again, there are lots of ways that you could define a virtual field trip. So that is the particular concept that we've kind of run with. But I think a lot of these materials could apply if you want to change that definition a little bit. So first, we introduce students to this idea of a virtual field trip. We ask them to identify things that they like, things that they don't like, really getting them to think critically about the experience, both from the creator and the user perspective. We make sure that in this sequence, there's opportunity for students to learn the technology, because as I'm sure you all can imagine, the cognitive load when you're trying to learn the tech and the concept is just too much if you do it at the same time. So we really recommend that you have your learners kind of figure out how the tech works in a very low stakes, fun way before you then ask them to apply in a particular project or, PBL experience. Then you get into the heart of really building your virtual field trip, taking the time to do that. As an educator, of course, you'll need to figure out what your task is and how you want to present it. And then we've seen that this element of design thinking, has been great in the classroom, but it does take time. And we acknowledge that educators are constrained. Maybe you only have like 20 minutes to interact with somebody. Maybe you have a week. And so trying to understand how this sequence fits into your instructional scope and sequence is very important. And we're putting together materials for educators who to help them figure that out so that you can understand which of these pieces will fit into your schedule and when. Of course, we think sharing these as a final product is really important. We've seen educators have students share them with their peers and engage in them together. We've seen educators share these out with parents and communities, and then they have kind of like a sharing night. We've also seen educators make things that get shared by their towns on their town's website, and then the kids get to get feedback from that. And so, it's really up to you how you want to pitch this to your learners, what you have access to, and what will get you and your learners most excited about things. So as I mentioned, the first place I would start is in this educator planning guide. And this kind of steps you through what we think are the most important decision points as you're going through this process of designing an activity. So obviously the first thing you got to do is choose the topic or what you want to focus on. You have to figure out how you're going to frame the assignment. Are you going to ask your learners to teach somebody something new? Are you going to ask them to, let's say, make some kind of proposal to a council about something? Are you going to ask them to showcase an in-person experience that they had? That framing is super important, and making sure that you're integrating that throughout the lesson is key. Also thinking about things like, are you going to collect the media? Are your students going to collect media? Are you going to use existing media? And figuring out the important features of that media so that you can really clearly connect the concepts to the space is super important. And that takes time. So making sure that you prepare for that as well is important, and also all in this documentation. And these are all shared on our website, which again is linked at the bottom left corner there. There are links coming in the chat, and you'll get a follow-up email there as well. So I'm hoping this is going to work. So for each step in our guide, there's actually a ThingLink that we made to kind of showcase this as a preview. There is a lesson plan for educators. So this is educator facing to help you figure out how this happens in your learning context. There's also instructional slides. So if you are in a space where you want to project instructions to your learners, for each lesson, there's a suite of slides that you can use to kind of scaffold the process in the classroom. There's also student-facing materials. So if there's any handouts, any kinds of activities, that's there as well. These are constantly in, we're getting feedback on them, we're updating them. We want to make sure that we get, that we're listening to what our educators are telling us, and that we're updating as we need to. But they're all hosted on the site and will be updated as we're making new versions of things. In addition to those kind of lesson-specific instructions for educators and students, we also have examples of materials that we have created and co-created with other educators. So there are example tasks of what students have done before to set up the virtual field trip experience, so that you can use that as an example that you can use with your learners, or you could just take it out of the box and run with it if it's something you're excited about. We also have some VFTs up there that are really more for student engagement. As I mentioned, that's also a part of our portfolio and something we're interested in learning about. So we have kind of like a bingo template that we've put together for students to interact with different virtual field trips created by educators. We've made a virtual field trip about the nitrogen cycle specifically, with an interactive activity as students are going through the different places on the trip. So all of these as examples live on that website. And there's lots of stuff in the works. So we're still working on additional resources, particularly around student feedback activities. This is something that I'm hoping in the next 2 months or so we'll have even more hosted on the website, if that's something that you would like to do with your learners. We have part of our team who are working very hard on modules and videos to support educator professional learning, kind of as a complement to many of the things that the ThingLink team is putting together already. So if you're interested in learning more about this from a pedagogical perspective or having more of that support, please do fill out that interest survey, because we're looking for folks who would maybe like to be part of a community of educators thinking about how we can use this with our learners. We're always developing new curricula, new modules, and very interested in learning how that impacts learning. And something else that we're working on that I alluded to in the very beginning with a question that we had was that we're working on a teacher evaluation dashboard. So this is something that I think ThingLink has some capability for itself, and this is something that maybe we can talk about together and figure out how to collaborate. But something that we've encountered in working with teachers is that it's a big question how to assess these things. If evaluation is something you need to do as part of for part of this as a project, making sure that there's a relatively smooth way to do that is something that we're working on, because you don't want to be sitting there necessarily looking through all of the different tags that students have made. While it's fun, it does get cumbersome. And if you have lots of students, it takes a lot of time. So that's something we're working on as well. As is mentioned, we do have this resource site where all of this is hosted. The link that I've shared here will take you to specifically our supporting student creation page, but this is just a snippet of what the homepage looks like. So please click around. There's lots of student created examples, educator created examples, example curricula. All of the educator supports that I mentioned are hosted on this website, as well as different options for downloading them. So if you'd like to use any of these materials, they're available for download in Microsoft Suite, to copy into Google, or as PDFs. So however you want to use it, hopefully you'll be able to find a way. And if you do want to use the materials and it's not available, please let us know. We will figure out a way to make sure we get them to you. Will there be a ThingLink tutorial of VFT for teacher in other languages? That is something I would love to do. I unfortunately am not multilingual, so I could not be the person to do it. But if we could find somebody who we can collaborate with to do that, yes, I would love to do that. I think that'd be something we'd be very excited about. Someone's asking again, how do we access these lessons? So if you go to the website, which has been included in the chat, and it's also at the bottom left corner there, all of the educator supports are there on the website. If you go to, there's a sample media and curricula tab as well. Our materials that we've put together that are publicly available are also there too. There's some stuff that we're still working on that we haven't completely published yet, but most of it is all available on the website. And the last thing I'll say is just thank you so much again for welcoming us into your community. This has been an effort of lots of folks on our team. As I mentioned, our whole VFT project is pretty vast. And so I just want to acknowledge everyone on my team who has contributed to this work. It's such an honor and a privilege to get to see educators and students build and create in this way. And if you want to learn more, please do go to our website. You can also email me directly. I love getting emails from educators, so please feel free to send me an email. We also have a virtual field trips email for our project as a whole, which is there as well. If you want to find me, we can make sure you get contact information. So thank you so much. If anyone has any last questions, I'd love to discuss.
Yay! Rachel, that was amazing. Education gold, this webinar is. There is
Wow.
so much here, and everyone is just, really requesting access to the resources and want to find out more. And of course, we'll be sending all of these resources out to you. People saying, looks so amazing. What an actual fantastic job, Rachel. Yeah, and I know it is a community that are behind all this, and you are part of our community as well. Not just our certified trainer community, but you are part of our creator community as well. And it'd be great to come back and do this again, whether it's in 6 months or a year, and just see if we've got other examples coming through from anybody else as well. I was going to ask a question. Is there any examples there of student creation examples on the website that you absolutely kind of love and have really stood out for you? Because I know I've got a couple of favorites from the website.
I'm trying to think of on the website. I mean, I love all of them for different reasons. I think, okay, there is one actually. So our very first pilot that we did with this was with a 4-H group. And again, if you're not familiar with 4-H, it's an after-school program in the States where we were working with students in a like 3-week-long summer series. And their project was to create a virtual field trip of a place or a space that was important to them. And this was with a group of students that ranged in age from, I want to say the youngest was maybe 8 to about 15. And the things that the kids made were just fantastic. So, okay, so I think Louise has pulled this up. And so the one on the left there was a girl who went on a family vacation to a national park, and she was capturing the things that she noticed at this very famous spot in the park. And something that I really loved, and this is a very small thing, is if you look around, you'll see a tag where she says something about like, someone left their trash here. This is really sad. We need to make sure that we protect our parks. And it was just this moment of, this is the way that she's communicating that's important to her. And it wasn't something she needed to do. It was just something that just by herself, she did that. And I was really moved by that. And just for kids to let us into that special place of like seeing where their family went on vacation. The other one that's there was a kid who had a chicken coop in his backyard. And as someone who lives in a very, urban area, I don't see a lot of chicken coops in kids' backyards. And so I just loved that. It was something that, it was great. And it was an amazing first experience to see how easily the kids took to the technology, how easy personalization came to them, but how they could also really start integrating like big science concepts. So this idea of climate change and, environmentalism is something that came out of that other trip that wasn't even part of the assignment. And so we thought, okay, if this is something that's naturally coming to mind when kids are looking at places and spaces, we can push ourselves. We can really say, how can we connect science and how can we connect this really kind of deeper learning to the medium and to what students are creating?
And I've shared the site with lots of people, and obviously ThingLink is used from early years right the way through to higher education and then on to enterprise learning as well, or learning and development. And I'm really excited that the universities are picking up on this to encourage students on field trips in their undergraduate years to create virtual field trips from their site visits. So this isn't something that's just confined to K-12. It can be used at any age and stage and anywhere they're learning, really. And it doesn't have to be a physical trip. It can be something that's as close as your backyard as well. So again, thank you, Rachel. It's just absolutely incredible. So we have got a few updates that I really just wanted to share with everybody that will help some of these things as well. So as you know, we've created webinars on creating escape rooms, and Claudia, and I've shared this in our chat as well, sorry, in the email that's coming out, Claudia made this fantastic example, Wakelet, of loads of ideas of how to create clues for digital escape rooms. So I've put that in the email, so you will get that. But having transparent tag icons in escape rooms is something that people really asked for. So that is now available, and it's there in different gradients as well. Now, something else you'll have seen, and I think you called this out, Rachel, that ability to hover over, which is fairly new. And this new feature is actually something that we've developed in response to feedback. But there was an old version of ThingLink where it did give you a little bit of a preview, but that was part of our newer ThingLink multimedia editor. So we've brought that back. So you now have tag previews on Hover that give you a snapshot of what's in that tag. And one of the reasons and justification for us doing this is that it helps to reduce cognitive overload when you have a whole range of tags in front of you. And of course, you can use guided mode still, and you can actually have locked mode so that tags remain locked, so they can be opened in sequence as well. Now, this again came up in the chat. Thank you for whoever has been mentioning this. So now when you're actually in your ThingLink account, what you'll be able to do is, and I'm just going to go into my ThingLink account. When you go into your media section and you hit the create button, you can, of course, bring your own 360 images. You can generate yours with your Pano to 360, as Rachel mentioned. You can also generate with AI, which is our integration with Skybox, so that you can create 360 images yourselves, and students can access that as well. And that has got admin control, so you can toggle that on or off if you don't want your students to access that. But you also now have a 360 library, which has been expanded. So if you want to encourage students to go in and explore some of these 360 images, it's there on the create button. They'll be able to go in and select an image, and all you need to do is simply click on whichever image you want to use and continue, and it will be there for you as well. If you're used to the 360 library being here, of course, it's going to be there for you as well, but it's actually built into that create flow, which is lovely. We've also added some further AI features. Now, if you want to, you can upload a PDF when prompted to generate your tags for you, and that will generate up to 9 tags based on your knowledge base. So not only can you bring your own base media, you can now bring your knowledge base to ThingLink in order to create your tags for you. And watch this space, because that kind of thinking around bringing your own knowledge base is just going to be a theme running through our improvements. So it's not only AI that we've been working on, and Ivan is part of our support team and our development team. And this is really important for you to know, that as well as working on developments and improvements to our editor and scenario builder, we've also been parallel to that working on our security credentials, and we've achieved ISO 27001. And if you're not aware of what that means, it is the highest bar that you can achieve in terms of credibility for your security credentials. So I really just want to give Ivan and the rest of the team a big shout out for making sure that we're keeping everybody's data safe. Now, there's a couple of case studies I really wanted to call out. I don't know if anyone's seen this one, but this is about a village that's been created by Salford University. And there is an actual physical village, which is called Eam, which is a village in the 1600s that kind of pulled up the drawbridges because they didn't want to catch the plague. And what they've done, which is just super creative, is that they've created a virtual field trip, if you like, but it's done in AI to represent what it would have looked like in the 1600s. The characters tell the stories. They've actually got actors that are people in the university, and they've used a bit of face swap to make sure that they look like they're from those times. And the students then explore the narrative around the public health, and then the trip actually goes to the physical site today. So it's got a mishmash of what it was like then, using a bit of AI to tell the story, and then actually going into the physical space. So I would actually encourage you to have a look, and I've put the link into our email. And we're seeing a lot of these types of things created as well at the moment. And I'll just share this one. So like you have scaffolding, if you want to use ThingLink, as you've been describing, Rachel, sometimes it's really nice to scaffold people's awareness of what the course they're going to be doing is. And this is an interactive course journey that shows people exactly every step of the way what they're going to be learning throughout the course. And this helps to create a connection for the learners. They know in advance which modules they're going to be following in and which sequence. And it just really helps to give people that knowledge in advance. And it's kind of got some nice kind of TikTok style little videos as well, which is quite cute. So that's another case study that we've done that we wanted to bring your attention to. things, of course, that anyone can use at any stage of learning. Our next webinar, and I've got about 50 seconds left, our next webinar is going to be with quizzes again. And we're going to be looking more about how you can build quizzes and different types of quizzes as well, whether it's drag and drop or guessing words, and ways in which you can create your escape room. So we've called that Escape the Ordinary Breakout with ThingLink and quizzes. And we'd love you to join that one as well. And I'm sure, Claudia, you'll come back and join us for that one.
Of
There's
course.
tomorrow, if you haven't signed up to it, a big shout out to our friend and community member Dan Fitzpatrick, the AI educator, and he even has just launched a book, which is the AI Guide, bestseller on Amazon at the moment. And guess what? It even features ThingLink in the book. So thank you to Dan for giving us a shout out. So I think my job is done there. I've done all of my shout outs. All that is left is for me to say, and bring Ivan back on as well. Last thoughts from everybody. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was just amazing. Everyone is just sending some really nice messages there in the chat. Ivan, any interesting thoughts that have come up on the chat there? Lots of love for everybody.
Yes, I would highly encourage everyone to explore the website that Stanford has prepared. There are a lot of great examples there. Again, the link is in the chat, the link is pinned, we've shared it multiple times today. And I encourage you to explore it. There are lots of sections with examples from both students and instructors. There are guides that Rachel has demonstrated throughout the webinar today. So there's lots to explore that we haven't really covered today, if you want to go deep into everything we talked about. But also remember, like Louise mentioned, we have lots of tools for creating your own 360 images if you do not have a 360-degree camera.
Yeah. Rachel, any last thoughts for you? And then I'll hand over to Claudia to close us out.
Just thank you again so much for having me. And I know there's so much more that we could have talked about today. So again, I would just say if anyone's interested and you have questions, please feel free to reach out. Our team is so excited to learn more from folks who are interested in this work and to collaborate and to partner. So please don't hesitate. We'd love to talk to you, and we can definitely work together.
Thank you, Rachel. And Claudia, I know that you've been taking lots of notes and you always bring fantastic energy and ideas.
Thank you.
Any last thoughts from you, Claudia?
Well, first of all, thank you, Rachel, so much. It was a pleasure having you here with us today. I've learned so much, and I think even the people on YouTube all agree with me that you're fantastic, that we want to collaborate with you and we want to grow together. This is just amazing. When we find educators like you, is just a pleasure, because we know there is so much potential, to develop and explore. And this is so fantastic for us. I mean, to have somebody like you helping us grow and achieve our potential. Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you, Louise, and thank you, Ivan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claudia. So thank you to all of you who have joined us. Thank you to everyone who's watching this on the replay as well. You'll get the same email with all of the links and resources. So from all of the ThingLink team, a huge thanks, and we wish you all well. Have a great school year, everyone. If you're just getting back into your classrooms, we wish you well. If there's anything else that we can do for you, then please do get in touch, and we'll make sure that we've got a whole season ahead of webinars that we think you'll find interesting. So thank you, everyone. Take care, and we'll hope to see you soon. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.